A billionaire CEO wanted to marry my daughter, but she refused. I forced her to accept, and now she won't speak to me. The moment my daughter Simone slammed the engagement ring box on my kitchen table and said, "I don't care how rich he is, I'm not marrying him," I thought she was being foolish and immature. Alexander Chun was a billionaire CEO, handsome, successful, and genuinely in love with my daughter. He could give her everything: security, luxury, a life I'd never been able to provide. So I did what I thought any practical mother would do. I spent 3 months convincing, pressuring, and eventually manipulating Simone into accepting his proposal and marrying him. The wedding was beautiful. Alexander was devoted, and Simone looked perfect walking down the aisle. But she also looked at me with such cold betrayal in her eyes that I felt it in my soul. That was 3 years ago. Today, my daughter lives in a mansion with staff, drives luxury cars, travels the world, and has everything money can buy. She also hasn't spoken to me in over a year, won't return my calls, and told me through her lawyer that I'm not welcome in her life. I forced my daughter into a marriage she didn't want, and even though she's living in wealth and comfort, she may never forgive me for taking away her choice. My name is Patricia Morgan, and I'm 62 years old. I raised my daughter Simone as a single mother after her father left when she was 3. I worked as a nurse, and while we never went hungry, we never had extras either. Everything I did was about giving Simone a better life than I'd had, better education, better opportunities, better choices. Simone grew up to be everything I'd hoped: intelligent, beautiful, educated. She got her MBA, worked in finance, and by 30 years old was making a good salary. Not wealthy, but comfortable. She had her own apartment, paid her own bills, and was independent and proud. That's when she met Alexander Chun at a business conference 4 years ago. Alexander was 42, 12 years older than Simone, and the CEO of a tech company worth billions. He was handsome, sophisticated, cultured, and the moment he met Simone, he was smitten. Alexander pursued my daughter with the kind of devotion you read about in romance novels. He sent flowers to her office daily. He took her to the finest restaurants. He flew her to Paris for a weekend, to Tokyo for a business trip that turned into a vacation. He was attentive, respectful, and clearly falling deeply in love. Simone dated Alexander for about 6 months, and from the outside, they looked perfect together. When Alexander brought Simone to meet me, I was overwhelmed. This successful, wealthy man was treating my daughter like a queen, and I could see the life she could have with him, a life of comfort and security I'd never been able to give her. But I also noticed that Simone seemed reserved. She was polite with Alexander. She smiled at appropriate times, but there wasn't the spark I'd expected to see in a woman in love. She seemed more like she was going through motions than experiencing a grand romance. After that dinner, I asked Simone privately, "Sweetheart, are you happy with Alexander?" "He's nice, Mom," Simone said carefully. "He's very generous and attentive." "But do you love him?" Simone hesitated. "I care about him. He's a good man." That wasn't the answer I wanted to hear, but I told myself that sometimes love grows with time, that passion isn't everything, that stability and respect matter more than butterflies. Then, 8 months into their relationship, Alexander proposed. He did it extravagantly, rented out an entire restaurant, hired musicians, got down on one knee with a ring that must have cost 6 figures. I knew because Simone called me afterward, and I could hear in her voice that something was wrong. "He proposed," Simone said flatly. "That's wonderful." I exclaimed. "Sweetheart, this is what every woman dreams of." "Is it?" Simone asked quietly. "What did you say?" I told him I needed time to think. My heart sank. Time to think. "Simone, this man loves you. He can give you everything. What is there to think about?" "Mom, I'm not sure I'm in love with him." "Love isn't just feeling butterflies," I said, repeating advice my own mother had given me. "Love is finding a good man who treats you well, who can provide for you, who respects you. Alexander is all of those things." "But I don't feel what I should feel," Simone insisted. "When I'm with him, I feel comfortable, safe, but not excited, not passionate." Not like I can't live without him. Simone, you're 30 years old, I said, perhaps more harshly than I should have. You're not a teenager expecting fairy tale romance. Alexander is a catch, a wealthy, successful man who adores you. Do you know how rare that is? I know, Mom. That's why I feel so guilty. He's perfect on paper, but something just doesn't feel right. Over the next 2 weeks, Simone agonized over the decision. Alexander was patient but clearly anxious for an answer. And God forgive me, I pushed. Every conversation with Simone, I found ways to emphasize what she'd be giving up if she said no. Your father left me with nothing, I told her. I worked double shifts for years just to keep us fed and housed. Alexander could give you the security I never had. Don't throw that away chasing some fantasy of perfect love. Think about your future, I said another time. You want children someday. Alexander could give them everything, the best schools, opportunities you and I never had. Is your uncertainty worth depriving your future children of that life? You're overthinking this, I insisted. Marriage isn't about fireworks. It's about partnership with someone reliable. Alexander is the most reliable man you'll ever meet. Finally, after 2 weeks and constant pressure from me, Simone called Alexander and accepted his proposal. When she told me, she didn't sound happy. She sounded resigned. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I said, ignoring the warning bells in my head. You're making the right choice. I hope so, Mom, Simone said quietly. I really hope so. The engagement period was 6 months. Simone went through all the motions: dress shopping, venue selection, invitation design. Alexander was overjoyed, planning an elaborate wedding and treating Simone like precious treasure. But I noticed Simone seemed distant, like she was watching her own life from outside her body. 2 months before the wedding, Simone came to my house, and we sat in my kitchen where we'd had so many important conversations over the years. Mom, I don't think I can do this, Simone said, and I could see she'd been crying. Sweetheart, what's wrong? I don't love him, Mom. Not the way a wife should love a husband. I respect him, I care about him, but I don't love him. And it's not fair to marry him feeling this way. This was the moment. This was when I should have listened to my daughter, believed her feelings, supported her choice. Instead, I did the opposite. Simone, listen to me, I said firmly. You're having cold feet. Every bride has doubts. But you need to think practically. You're 30 years old. How many more chances like this do you think you'll get? Alexander adores you. He can give you a life of comfort and security. Don't throw that away because you're chasing some romantic fantasy. It's not a fantasy to want to love my husband, Simone protested. Love grows, I insisted, though I was starting to feel uncertain myself. You start with respect and companionship, and love develops over time. Your father and I had passion, and look how that ended. He left me struggling alone with a 3-year-old. Alexander would never do that. He's stable, devoted, committed. But Mom... No, I cut her off. I've watched you your whole life work so hard for everything you have. You deserve ease. You deserve comfort. Alexander is offering you that. Don't be so proud that you turned down a blessing because it doesn't look exactly how you imagined. Simone looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, like I was a stranger, like she didn't recognize me. Is this really about what's best for me? Simone asked quietly. Or is this about you wanting to see me in the life you never had? Her words stung because there was truth in them. Yes, I wanted Simone to have the security and comfort I'd never had. Yes, I wanted to see my daughter living in wealth instead of struggle. Was that so wrong? I want what's best for you, I said. And Alexander is what's best for you, even if you can't see it right now. Simone left my house that day, and I thought I'd convinced her. The wedding preparations continued. I told myself she'd be grateful someday, that she'd look back and thank me for helping her make the practical choice. The wedding day arrived. It was spectacular, a venue that cost more than I'd made in 5 years of nursing, flowers flown in from exotic locations, a guest list of hundreds of important people. Alexander looked at Simone like she hung the moon. And Simone looked beautiful in her designer gown, walking down the aisle on my arm because she had no father to do it. But when she looked at me, her eyes were cold.
Betrayed.
Accusing. "I'm doing this because you convinced me it's the right choice," she whispered as we walked. "But Mom, if I'm unhappy, that's on you." Her words chilled me, but it was too late to stop anything now. The ceremony proceeded. Simone said, "I do," in a steady voice, and they were married. The reception was lavish. Everyone celebrated except Simone, who smiled for photos, but whose eyes remained distant. I tried to talk to her during the reception, but she barely acknowledged me. "Simone, sweetheart, you make a beautiful bride." "Thank you, Mother," she said formally, then turned away to speak to guests. The first year of marriage, Simone kept in contact but at a distance. Phone calls were brief and superficial. She declined invitations to visit. When I called her, she was polite but cold. She'd moved into Alexander's mansion, quit her finance job to manage charitable foundations, and lived a life of spectacular wealth and luxury. "Are you happy?" I'd ask during our rare phone calls. "I have everything I need," Simone would respond, which wasn't an answer. About 18 months into the marriage, Simone stopped answering my calls altogether. When I showed up at the mansion, security wouldn't let me in. When I sent letters, they went unanswered. I was devastated. I'd done what I thought was right, pushed my daughter towards security and stability. How was I the villain? Finally, 2 years into the marriage, I received a letter from Simone. It was typed, formal, and devastating. "Mother, I'm writing because you deserve an explanation for why I've cut contact with you. You pushed me into a marriage I didn't want. You dismissed my feelings, my instincts, and my explicit statements that I didn't love Alexander. You chose what you wanted for my life over what I wanted for myself. I am married to a good man who loves me. We have a comfortable life. I have material wealth beyond measure. But I am profoundly unhappy. Every day I wake up next to a man I respect but don't love, in a life I didn't choose, feeling trapped in a golden cage that you convinced me to enter. Alexander deserves a wife who loves him passionately, and he knows I'm not that wife. It hurts him. It hurts me. Our marriage is civil and cordial, but it's not what either of us deserves. I could have said no. I was an adult, and I made the final choice. But you were relentless, and I was weak, and I let you convince me that my feelings didn't matter as much as financial security. I'm writing to tell you that I need space from you, perhaps indefinitely. Every time I talk to you, I'm reminded that you valued wealth over my happiness, that you pushed me into this life because it's the life you wanted to live through me. Maybe someday I'll forgive you. But right now, I need to focus on making peace with the choice I made because of your pressure.
Simone.
Reading that letter, I felt like my world collapsed. My daughter was unhappy. She felt trapped.
And she blamed me.
I tried to respond, tried to apologize, tried to explain. But Simone wouldn't engage. Her lawyer sent a cease and desist letter asking me to stop contacting her. That was a year ago. I'm now 62 years old, and I haven't spoken to my daughter in over 12 months. I see photos of her sometimes in society pages, attending charity galas with Alexander, looking beautiful and elegant and completely empty behind the eyes. I've spent this year in therapy trying to understand what I did and why. My therapist has helped me see uncomfortable truths. I projected my own struggles onto Simone's life. Because I'd been poor and struggled, I couldn't imagine anyone voluntarily choosing love over financial security. I valued material comfort over emotional fulfillment, assuming that wealth would make Simone happy, even if love didn't. I didn't trust my daughter to know her own heart. I dismissed her feelings as immaturity rather than listening to her instincts. I wanted to live vicariously through Simone's wealthy life, to see my daughter have what I never had, regardless of what that cost her emotionally. I was so focused on what Alexander could provide materially that I didn't consider what he couldn't provide emotionally, the passion and connection Simone needed to feel fulfilled. Looking back now, I can see all the signs I ignored. Simone told me explicitly she didn't love Alexander. She told me she felt wrong about the marriage. She came to me 2 months before the wedding and said she didn't think she could go through with it. And instead of supporting my daughter's feelings and choices, I pressured her, manipulated her, and convinced her that her instincts were wrong and my judgment was right. I thought I was being a practical mother, saving my daughter from making a mistake. But I was actually forcing her into a life sentence with a man she didn't love, in a marriage that makes her miserable despite all its material comfort. Simone was right when she asked if this was about what was best for her, or what I wanted to see for her life. I was so desperate for my daughter to have the security I never had that I couldn't see she was trading one kind of poverty for another, trading financial struggle for emotional emptiness. Would Simone have been better off marrying someone she loved who made less money? Maybe. Maybe they would have struggled financially, but been happy. Maybe she would have found both love and success with someone else. I'll never know because I took that possibility away from her by pressuring her into this marriage. Alexander is apparently a devoted husband, though Simone's letter indicated he knows she doesn't love him the way he loves her. I wonder if he regrets marrying a woman who accepted his proposal under pressure from her mother. I wonder if he feels the emotional distance Simone described. I wonder if he's happy with a wife who provides companionship but not passion. 3 years ago, I thought I was helping my daughter make a smart choice. Today, I'm estranged from my only child, who lives in a mansion but feels trapped, who has everything money can buy but not the one thing that matters most, the freedom to choose her own life. Last week, I sent one final letter to Simone through her lawyer. My dearest Simone, I don't expect you to respond. I just need you to know that I understand now what I did wrong. You told me you didn't love Alexander, and I dismissed your feelings. You told me the marriage felt wrong, and I insisted you were being immature. You tried to say no, and I pressured you until you said yes. I convinced myself I was protecting you, guiding you, helping you make a practical choice. But I was actually taking away your autonomy and your right to choose your own life. I'm so sorry. You deserved a mother who listened to your heart, not one who valued financial security over your emotional well-being. You were right. I was living through you, wanting you to have the wealthy life I never had, without considering whether that life would actually make you happy. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I want you to know that I see my mistake now. I see what I took from you, your choice, your autonomy, your chance to find real love instead of comfortable companionship. If you ever want to talk to me again, I'll be here. And if you never want to speak to me again, I understand that too. I love you. I'm sorry I showed that love so poorly.
Mom.
I don't know if Simone read that letter. I don't know if she'll ever speak to me again. I don't know if she'll stay in her marriage or eventually leave it. What I do know is that I forced my daughter into a life she didn't want, and even though that life looks perfect from the outside, mansion, wealth, successful husband, it's a prison she's trapped in because I convinced her to walk through the door. Today, I'm a 62-year-old woman who has lost her only daughter because she valued money over love, security over happiness, and her own judgment over her daughter's clearly stated feelings. A billionaire CEO wanted to marry my daughter, and she said no. I pushed, pressured, and manipulated her until she said yes. Now she has everything money can buy and a mother she won't speak to because I taught her that her feelings didn't matter as much as financial security. I thought I was saving her from struggle. Instead, I sentenced her to a different kind of suffering, the kind that comes with waking up every day in a life you didn't choose, next to a man you don't love, trapped by your own decision that wasn't really your decision at all. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I thought I was being a practical mother. I was actually being a controlling one, projecting my fears and desires onto my daughter's life without considering what she actually wanted. Simone lives in a mansion. She has unlimited wealth. She travels the world. She wears designer clothes and attends exclusive events. And she's profoundly unhappy, trapped in a marriage I convinced her to enter. I may never speak to my daughter again. And I deserve that estrangement because I valued the wrong things and ignored her very clear message that she knew her own heart better than I did. Sometimes being a mother means protecting your child from bad choices. Sometimes it means supporting them to make their own choices, even if you disagree. I forgot the second part. And my daughter is paying the price for my mistake every single day of her wealthy, Lonely, loveless marriage.